Welcome one and welcome all. We are live this Sunday evening. The last podcast I said we were in June. We're not in June. It's January actually. January 17th for those who are watching live with us tonight. Here with an awesome guest list, we have Alex Bass of Cyberbytes Inc. How you doing, Alex?
Pretty good, as always.
Good to see you. I'm glad you cleaned your room before coming on. Always appreciated.
Yeah, if I don't, then I get yelled at by everyone in the chat, so, you know.
As well with us tonight, we have Brandon Orr.
How's it going, everybody? I'm doing well. Thank you.
No one asked, Brandon. No one asked.
And as well with us, we have special guest Derek Konigsberg, who is an avid BlackBerry fan, developer, aficionado, very opinionated as well. So we're going to toss him into our dialogue here. How you doing, Derek?
Good, good. I've been doing something BlackBerry related since practically 2006. Ridiculous to think how long I've been around.
Still holding true on a BlackBerry device, eh?
For the most part. I think the priv kind of half counts, but...
It's a half step, but we get you. And lastly, of course, we have infamous I would say BlackBerry editor-in-chief. I wish Crackberry editor-in-chief Blaze. How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
I saw you rocking a sombrero the other day. You want to tell us about that?
I had a sombrero on. I checked out some cowboy hats. Me and Michelle were out shopping, and I was just fooling around with some hats. I realized I actually do look pretty dapper in a cowboy hat, though. I was like, man, I'm seriously considering this $75 cowboy hat.
Oh my God.
Like, what?
Get the boots and all going on.
Right? Just need a sidearm, be ready to roll.
Let's have a moment of silence for Techno Buffalo's BBM channel. That's what it is. Channels is a fun thing, and I'm sure we'll get there toward the end as we go through our topic list today. But we have just a couple things to talk about. First thing I want to kind of jump into is good technology achieving some higher security certifications. And this is good technology by BlackBerry now, of course, since we have the M&A strategy that BlackBerry seems to be leveraging. What do you guys think about, kind of the aggregation of what we're seeing between these two companies? I mean, at this point, it very much seems like Good is going to be standalone for a while until BlackBerry can look at further integrating these two kind of massive organizations. What do you guys think? Does a Good technology win necessarily mean a BlackBerry win at this point, or is it a little bit too early?
I would say it's just synonymous with a BlackBerry win. I mean, they took over Good Technology, and I think Good Technology is trying to bolster up their enterprise security portfolio. So any win in that space, regardless of whether it's Good or what's the other company out of SecuSmart, any of the wins of any of their subsidiaries like QNX or any of those can be considered a win by BlackBerry.
Yeah, I agree with Brandon. Mainly because, I mean, at this point, not exactly everybody knows that it's BlackBerry. It's kind of like a QNX win at this point. Not everybody knows that it's QNX, but the people who care actually do know. So, it's still one of those things where BlackBerry may not get necessarily the full recognition for it, but whatever, it's still a win. It's still a feather in the cap.
It's funny because, if we look at all the feathers in BlackBerry's caps, how many of them actually make money, right? That's the funniest part. It's a really tough place because taking Good technology for the valuation they did in the situation the company was in pre-IPO was very interesting. I mean, this was a company that was making money but wasn't necessarily profitable, right? So how do you think John Chen's going to be able to bring the two companies together so that both can start making money? Do you think maybe some of BlackBerry's overhead can help kind of cover for Good technology? I mean, what's the strategy? I mean, it just was a very interesting choice because there's a potential overlay of a lot of the stuff they do. Hangouts UI. Yeah, Hangouts UI specifically for us is only going to show, it'll pop up above, but it won't show for anyone else. So that's a good news for us. But speaking Good technology, Alex, do you think there's more integration to happen here, or are these units of business going to be kind of standalone, but just like a subsidiary type thing?
I don't know. I feel like it's tough to say anything. Say for certain they're going to be separate. I feel like in the future things can change. I think plans are always changing, so it might. I don't know. It's something that we haven't really seen them make an acquisition this big in a while, specifically in MDM. So I am very curious, like how they're going to go about doing it in the future. Right now, it doesn't necessarily mean, they might be limited in some way where they can't, integrate as much as they wanted to or something. Doesn't mean that it's gonna be like that for the future. So I really don't know.
I find it interesting that there's some, pretty obvious overlap because Bez 12 can do Android and can do iOS, and then obviously there's like, good technology who can do Bez, or yeah, good technology can do Bez. Yeah, that's it. Good technology can do like Android and iOS as well. So there has to be some sort of like integration there, I believe, at some point in time to be able to go ahead and make the systems, a little bit more cohesive. But other than that, I mean, I don't. Good technologies, a lot of good stuff doesn't even actually work with BlackBerry 10 unless it's actually sideloaded. So, there's some overlap and there's some gaps in between what the two, I can't even say companies, but the two systems offer. So, it doesn't seem as though that they can integrate every single thing, right?
Yeah, and that can be a real pain for users, right? And BlackBerry 10 notwithstanding, if you look at the specifics of what those several applications were that good powered by BlackBerry, we're looking specifically at like the secure container and the applications receiving that higher level of certification. So really kind of doubling down on their security and the main core tenets of what good brought to the table, right? Certified app ecosystem for specifically iOS apps, right? So we've got the good proxy, the control server, good access clients, things like that. So you're right, a lot of overlap there. I'm hoping that it just helps them attack the Android and the iOS market specifically just a little bit stronger, right? Because those are already existing customer bases where I think it was like 64, 65% of those users were on iOS from good anyway. So it's kind of leveling out their playing field where they obviously had a high density of BlackBerry devices that they were managing. Now they can play on that other side of the fence too. Either way, yeah, go ahead.
No, I've been, as of lately, I've been trying to get like partner status with Google for my company for deployment, essentially MDM and all that Google Apps for Work. And I'm realizing now, like personally, it's easy to kind of see MDM and BlackBerry and like, they're at the top and everything, but you kind of have this IT staff and then you have companies who are pushing the product and that's how a lot of it's going to be sold. And I'm realizing how much work it is to learn. Like I have to take an exam through Google, and it's for a deployment specialist exam, how to, transfer people over from one MDM to another MDM. And there's so much involved with it, and doing it smoothly, and it's overwhelming. Just how robust the platform is, at least for Google, and understanding it all is really difficult. So part of me was always like, oh, MDM, BlackBerry, they got it. But then I see, like, I've been taking live webinar, well, not webinars, but actually classes with Google employees, and they're kind of teaching us how to become deployment specialists. And it's like, it's a lot of work, and it makes me a little bit worried from BlackBerry's standpoint, because I mean, if they're personally trying to push it in, they're going to be the ones that are deployment specialists. That's one thing. But you really, to scale, you need a lot of companies doing it for you and pushing the product. And it's like, if me personally as a company, I don't necessarily try and recommend BlackBerry or Bez, so then it's just like this weird scenario where I'm actually pushing Google product, and I have been the past few years when it comes to that, and it's like the one place where BlackBerry's like their golden standard is. So I don't know, I'm just torn in it all. I'm kind of getting more realization of the market and the competition in the market, I guess. um,
You're such a terrible BlackBerry fan, Alex. You can't
it's
even push the MDM solution. What the hell's wrong with you?
I don't that's
Didn't
what I'm
BlackBerry
torn
invent the
about.
MDM solution?
Sorry, say that again.
Didn't BlackBerry invent the MDM solution?
Yes, but that doesn't mean that it's the easiest to implement slash train slash yeah. It's a shame.
No,
I don't
it's
know.
enterprise software. I mean,
Yeah,
there's this curve of price versus how much it sucks. And
yeah,
it seems like the more the software costs, the more it sucks once you pass, the threshold of Adobe products. So
yeah,
up until Adobe pricing, you pay more, you get more. After that, it's sort of the opposite.
It's
yeah.
true, man.
That's the
Like,
sad
when it
truth.
comes down to it, all of that stuff is incredibly complicated, like seemingly overcomplicated. That's why when Bez Cloud came out, there was such
Yeah,
like at least there was like a little bit of initial hype and essentially hope that it would be somewhat easier for people on the end user spectrum to be able to go ahead and implement these things because
I tried it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I set mine up. Of course, I've managed to lock myself out of my own device a few times, but in the end, it was way more easier than going ahead and setting up my own personal bez, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, it's one of those things where, yeah, there was definitely some initial hype there because of the fact that end users can go ahead and do these things themselves, whereas setting up a bez, you need to worry about servers, you need to worry about RAM and SQL databases and all this other crazy stuff that people, normally just don't really care about or don't know about, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, there's definitely a level of complication there that people need to understand, and that stuff's not all point and click and easy.
No.
And especially if you're looking at multiple solutions, like Alex said, he was looking at Google for work or whatever, and then there's of course, good technology, which ironically that leads us back to good technology conversation.
Yeah.
And as well, I mean, it's all incredibly complicated when you actually sit down and you look at the documents. It's like, holy crap, I can never figure this stuff out, right?
So
I
Alex,
mean,
why
I
do you
mean,
find yourself aside promoting Google then? Is it strictly ease of use or access, or is it because you're already kind of ingrained in that ecosystem? I mean, what is it for you?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's so complicated. I mean, there was a partner program we partnered up, and we got like a 20% margin. So it's like, yes, push their product, and for every user, we charge $5. Google only charges us $4, so we get a little bit of margin for it. But now Google's actually pushing out all the small companies like us. We're kind of getting pushed away, where we're not even getting margin anymore. Google just announced this year they're essentially you need to sell at least $4,000 of new contracts in the year, or you no longer get margin. And now I have to pass all of these exams even to keep this admin console that I use to manage all my clients. And I'm telling you, the first time I took the exam, I got a 27% on it. It was a 2-hour exam, and I took it with my buddy. We got a 41%. I took a 2-hour class. I got a 44%. So I'm still trying to pass this. You need a 70% to pass it, but it's geared towards 10 to 100,000 users. It's not really meant for the small clients that I have. I have clients that are between 5 and 20 users. So it's the questions that they ask are very, very difficult. So it's weird to me that I mean I'm definitely seeing Google go in this direction where they're trying to be enterprise based, and it gets me a little bit worried for BlackBerry because their process at least is very streamlined for setting up a company. I can set up a company to Google Apps for Workers, switch them over fairly quickly. I've switched people over from Microsoft and the other solutions out there, and it's not too much work. But really, it was the partner status, and it was that I was just using it. It's something I was very comfortable with, and it works across devices. Yes, you don't get as much integration with BlackBerry, and I think that's where one of the big things comes. If you have a client that has all BlackBerry 10 devices, then yes, you're not going to get the kind of integration that you really want using Google Apps for Work, but at this point, it seems like at least a lot of my clients, they have iPhones, they have Android devices, so that's kind of where you get pigeonholed. And then, the Priv is Android anyway, so I don't know.
So
It's tough.
don't worry about it too much, Alex. If that's the case, Google will just buy BlackBerry.
Yeah. There's that. Yeah.
BlackBerry's already running their Android devices. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easier. Yeah, it's an easier acquisition, right? Yeah. Uh,
I feel like Samsung might get mad if that were to happen, though.
Who cares
Wait a
about
minute.
Samsung?
We were gonna buy them. That's why we took all their employees. So, we talk a lot about, Android and Priv specifically, but BlackBerry 10 is still getting some maintenance and love along the way. We just saw the global release of BlackBerry 10.3.2.2876. Really a hotfix update started to roll out for users across the globe. Specifically in the North American continent, we got this update a couple weeks back, and it seems to kind of be percolating through wider availability. This update is said to bring updates to the calendar, removal of the BBM Meetings app, which is going to be disestablished as of February, and as well patches for the Android player, specifically on the security side of things. Have any of you guys grabbed this update on your devices? I grabbed it on a couple of my unlocked ones, still waiting on some of my carrier-driven ones. Honestly, it was a nice little bug fix. I had a specific resource issue on my Red Passport where RAM was just being used for no apparent reason, and the hotfix actually seemed to level that out for me. I don't know if that was the Android player or VBM meetings doing some nonsense, but it was a really nice update. Kind of evened out the experience I was having on my Passport. But I think a wider availability of 10.3.2 shows at least that BlackBerry is potentially gearing up for some of these other updates. Anyone else here happen to grab the update or have any experiences with it?
I've had it on my Silver Edition Passport for a while now. Like even before it rolled out to like the shop BlackBerry devices, I'm pretty sure it hit the servers and people were downloading it directly from there and building autoloaders and stuff. But it's a nice update to actually have for those who essentially don't use a lot of Android apps, because even though it says that there's a fix for the Android player in there, the OS is effectively like broken for Android apps. Some people experience the inability to go ahead and fully delete Android applications from their device. Like, you know how when you delete an application, it's supposed to remove everything from the device, but this particular OS, it doesn't. It actually leaves the application alone and still installed. So therefore, when you actually go and try and reinstall the application, you can't, because it says that it's installed. The icon and everything will go missing sometimes, and sometimes the icon doesn't actually disappear, even though it says that it deleted it. The icon doesn't actually disappear. Anyways, the long and short of it all is that the Android player is really messed up. There are some solutions to be able to go ahead and correct it, but it's still one of those things. It's like, why should I have to do this? Because it's broke. Like, why do I have to fix it?
BlackBerry's hotfix is buy a Priv.
Yeah, I mean. It's kind of interesting. Like, there's a BlackBerry knowledge base article. Like, BlackBerry knows now that it's a problem, and so on and so forth. There's lots of fixes in the Crackberry forums and stuff like that. You just upload the two bar files from an earlier OS for the Android runtime, and it's fixed. But again, why do you have to do that, right? One of those things that is problematic for some people, and then there's other people out there that it just doesn't affect their device at all. And whatever you do, don't follow BlackBerry's fix, because BlackBerry's fix actually just says wipe your device and start fresh, but that won't actually fix anything if you have the problematic OS. So keep that in mind.
Yeah,
but other than that, it's good OS.
Check out the Crackberry post if you are interested, and in the forums, there's more discussion on that actual solution as opposed to just wiping your device flat out.
Yeah, I mean, that should be a last case scenario.
Run now and lock your device for 72 hours. I'm sorry, that's just a Google pun. So 10.3.2 is out there globally. Check it out. Check for those software updates if you haven't grabbed it already. Another bit of news we had, which I thought was pretty interesting, BlackBerry. We had the BlackBerry fact checks, and I don't know if we've moved away from those or whether sometimes there's not enough information to really do a BB fact check, but we had a stance here, BlackBerry defending its phones from a forensic security group claiming that they had broken the PG encryption chips on BlackBerries to access some kind of communication. Well, this is a really interesting conversation. BlackBerry basically was like, there's no facts here, so we can't say anything really, right? The quotes
that was a difficult one that was easy for them to sort of refute, because the people calling them out really, they had nothing to back themselves up with. In fact, it wasn't even entirely clear from their posts whether this was BBOS or BB10, or actually it kind of looked like they were talking about third-party PGP apps on BBOS.
Yeah,
but again, there wasn't enough detail to know what the hell they were referring to.
Yeah, the lack of detail there, and I mean, for all of us to go ahead and look at it, we can assume that it was BBOS devices because they even pinpointed like 9320s and stuff like that. However, there's the subject of the fact that they didn't even actually break all of the devices. They noted that they couldn't get into all of the devices, and that it was not even standard custom BlackBerries, like BES-enabled BlackBerries or anything like that. It was PGP custom BlackBerries that you buy from like PGP Ghost, and which all run BlackBerry OS anyways. Which most of us aren't even actually using. Plus, you actually had to have physical access to the device, and you supposedly had to have access to the Cellbrite machines, which are, I'm sure can be bought on the black market at some point, but realistically, they're only available through like purchased directly through the company, carrier locations and stuff like that. Carriers used to actually have them as part of their like databases for transferring content back and forth for people. I believe Verizon actually used to use the system to transfer contacts back and forth when people switched devices. And yeah, law enforcement agencies. So it wasn't, like Derek said, it wasn't even 110% clear as to what the actual devices were that they were actually claiming to have unencrypted. It's just kind of a disastrous thing. I put a post in the BlackBerry forums that like these guys always come up every few months. If you guys actually pay attention to it, like Cellbrite machines, for years, Cellbrite has been claiming that they've been able to go ahead and crack BlackBerry devices. Like there's a video from like 2012, 2008, 2009. There's videos on YouTube that you can actually see, and they're claiming to show that they're cracking BlackBerry devices. And Alchemsoft is another company that does it. They basically claim that they break password keeper on BlackBerry and stuff like that. Like, I'm not doubting the fact that there are some possibilities that they could go ahead and dump some of the data from the device. I don't doubt that at all, but it's just the way that they go about announcing the stuff that's totally sketchy. Like, come on, at the end of the day, you still have to have physical access to the device. And it's one of those things where it's like, not everybody is going to hand over their phone. Like, if you're a law enforcement agency, then chances are you're probably accessing it through lawful access anyways, right? So what difference does it make? Like, nobody's picking up these Cellbrite machines off of the street and being able to crack your buddy's BlackBerry. Like, I'm not breaking into Brendan's BlackBerry and reading all of his email messages. Like, it's ridiculous how some of this stuff actually gets put out there. But that's what they do. Like, every few months, you'll hear these stories come up, and then they get perpetuated, and then blogs write about it. But again, as Derek said, this one was even sketchier than most because they didn't even give out much information. And it wasn't even new news. If you actually look at the article itself is from like December 20th or something like that. So the news went past like the news cycle, it got recycled, and then reprocessed back up. Like, we're talking about this now, and it's like January 17th. We're talking about news from December 20th. You know what I mean? Like, that's getting shit right there. Somebody had some ulterior motives to be able to go ahead and push that information back out again. But whatever.
That is called SEO spam.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
It reoccurs that way, right? On every quarter, we're gonna get the same news bits from these people.
Yeah, but there's a press release on our site to be able to go ahead and pull that information. So,
yeah, it's and that's the thing. Like, why didn't we get a fact check? Because there were no facts to check.
Right.
Pretty much why.
Hey, think on the bright side. We don't have the stock shorting news cycle anymore. Remember that?
Yeah, that's
Good news. Stock price goes up and up and up.
Yeah.
And then someone posted an inflammatory blog post, stock tanks, and this was like a wave for several years. Just, I feel like someone should have invested on this. They would have made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yep. The stock
Alex's blog.
seems like all the gains that BlackBerry made over the past few weeks has kind of been washed out by the economy the past couple of weeks. It's unfortunate.
But it's always to it's like an exponential scale. So like here's the economy, and BlackBerry is always like to this crazy ultimate like level where it's like, okay, everything's down 7%. Okay, BlackBerry is now down 18% because they're BlackBerry. Like, it's always affected at such a higher rate than everything else is. Just, I don't even understand why. Like, BlackBerry is just a volatile stock, and it's just, I guess that's what they want to be. They don't have control.
It's funny because if you think about it, BlackBerry's customers are the customers who would be able to weather the storm of an economic downturn. Like, a lot of them, like if you're thinking about it, governments, large corporations that have some kind of plan to deal with these type of things. Whereas if you think of somebody like a consumer-oriented OEM or something like that, if the economy goes down, all of a sudden you have a bunch of people who aren't willing to pay $1,000 for
Yeah.
a device, right? Whereas like
Business goes on. Yeah.
the government needs those services and devices to keep the country running, right? So I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's weird. I don't know. I think it's just always been a volatile stock, and I feel like it's always going to be.
Yeah, man.
Tech stocks always will be, but
Yeah.
There's too many people out there that are just shady trying to manipulate this.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, that's I've said it before. I can't even pay attention to it because it just drives me crazy. Like how much nonsense actually goes on in terms of the stocks. Like one bad article can actually just go ahead and redefine the whole stock. Like I don't get that.
Yeah.
Man. Like that's ridiculous nonsense to me.
Yeah, and then like 4 positive articles will barely move the dial, right?
Right?
Yeah.
People are fickle, and people drive those numbers at the end of the day. People are also driving some innovation at BlackBerry. We've seen some IoT movement on the security side. They announced DTSec, a major step forward towards cybersecurity and the Internet of Things. Probably one of the most interesting pieces of news across this last week. Basically, David Kleidermacher, who is their CSO, their Chief Security Officer, has really been looking at taking BlackBerry and being able to allow the company to scale toward the broader connectivity problem, right? Where there's really just a major trust issue. There's no compliance, no standards for some of these top-tier security features and assets. So BlackBerry's Chase team has been working on DTSec, a medical device cybersecurity standard, working with international nonprofit consortiums to basically create some of these standards for IoT, medical device compliance, and ISO and IEC methodologies, which is really, really cool, right? This is the kind of standardization that we're already seeing in QNX Automotive, with QNX being certified at different levels for different ADAS systems and things like that. Taking some of that expertise, right, and leveraging it over to other devices is smart. What else do you guys think is going to be necessary for us to really see this IoT picture? Because it has to be we talked a little bit about the openness or closedness of different platforms, be it Tesla versus QNX, right, on the automotive scale. But there needs to be compliance standards. Is that a government-driven thing? Is it a legislative type thing? I mean, where are we really going to be able to find the progress on some of these complex issues?
And it's funny because like IoT as a whole, it's like this buzzword that we've been hearing for so long. And really, what is IoT? And I guess that's having your toaster, that's having everything connected to the internet and able to function from that. And yes, there are some markets where I think will benefit a lot from that, like the auto industry, especially. I think they're planning, at least the U.S. government, Obama just passed something where they're going to be spending, I think, like $4 billion on transportation over the next 4 or 5 years to try and get automated cars out there. And so yes, the auto industry definitely makes a lot of sense, but I feel like this whole IoT thing where, yes, like your refrigerator will tell you what food you have inside of it, and you could label when it's spoiled, like if you saw anything at CES. I mean, it's stuff that I don't think is really going to revolutionize things too much. And then you have this whole scenario too where IoT, you have a company like Nest where they lost connection to the servers and everybody's house was stuck cold for a couple days because it's like on its most bare bones thing, your toaster should still be a toaster when it can't connect to the internet. When your toaster can't be a toaster because it can't connect to the internet, I think that's where you have problems.
That's when you run into the internet of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do wonder how many of these things would make for a great addition to, Disney World's Carousel of Progress, and how many would actually be useful in the real world.
Yeah.
I remember when I first moved out here and we were going refrigerator shopping, there was one refrigerator at the store that had apps, and they actually had to drop the price because nobody was buying it. But I think the problem with a lot of these connected devices is if the vendor doesn't care about maintaining the hardware and software behind it, it very quickly becomes useless junk at a far greater rate than the base appliance ever would.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
That's part of the whole scenario right now is who in the hell is going to go out and buy a fridge that may not necessarily be quote unquote supported in 2 years?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, which means the connected piece really needs to be something that's independent of the base appliance. I mean, the absolute top of the line infotainment connected gizmo of almost anything is just so horribly out of date and backwards compared to a 3-year-old smartphone.
Yeah.
It's almost sort of an embarrassment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, we were talking about that last week where we're like, you pull your smartphone or a tablet out in your car and it works 10 times better as an infotainment system than your actual car infotainment system that you spent $5,000 on to get is. And
Yeah.
that's really the problem.
Ridiculous.
When the
Yeah.
software isn't supported, it becomes worse than anything could have ever been.
Yeah,
It's
and take car infotainment systems, with the exception of basically one auto manufacturer, the moment you drive that car off the lot, they could care less about it.
yeah. Yep.
The one thing that's kind of worrying me about IoT is, will all the things that we buy going to be, are they not going to have any function that can be done without the internet? Like, for instance, I'm already seeing it with game consoles where, if a game console, the service is down, you basically can't use it because it can't verify with the internet that you have the licenses and stuff like that. And I'm wondering with fridges, and obviously fridges are a different thing, but other IoT related products, are they going to have, some built-in functionality, or are we going to keep continuing this trend where everything's going to have to continuously be connected to the internet to even work?
Well, I hope it doesn't have to automatically be connected to the internet to work, because that's going to be a pretty terrible scenario. Like, it's kind of funny because me and Michelle were talking about this the other day, because like Cox Internet, like our Cox Internet goes down pretty much like every single night. If anybody has Cox, like don't ever
Yeah.
get Cox Internet.
Yeah,
Okay.
Comcast just goes down in the middle of the weekday afternoon when they think
Yeah.
nobody's around to notice.
Yeah.
And Michelle brought up the exact same question. She was like, "What happens if we had like that internet connected fridge? Like the store, like is the internet even capable of supporting these things?" Because she was like, our internet goes out like every 2 hours. So what happens then if your internet goes out? Does all the food in your fridge spoil or anything? Like,
No, but
obviously that's an exaggerated
Yeah.
situation. It's a
But that-
situation that is realistic too, because what happens to all these things if you don't have the internet connected to them?
And that's honestly, like, at its barest level, we're literally in a problem with user experience, where at its barest bone level, when you plug the thing in, it should do what it's intended to do. Everything in addition to that, IoT should just be a layer on top of it. Like, oh, now I can make toast from my smartphone. But if I can't connect my smartphone to the internet and I can't connect the toaster to the internet, it should still work as a toaster. And that's where, like, Nest completely failed on that aspect. But that's such a basic thing. They should have a basic manual override. And the fact
Yeah.
that they didn't, that shows that's a problem with the way they implemented it, not with where IoT is going. A fridge should still be a fridge, even if like you independently use the internet, so it says, okay, you're keeping fruit in this drawer, so and you're using this type of fruit in there, so we're gonna keep this perfect, degrees Celsius, or I don't even know why I say Celsius. We use Fahrenheit. Well, I use Fahrenheit, but whatever. Even if they individually made each thing rely on the internet for what temperature it should be at, if it didn't connect to the internet, it should still, like, okay, well, it was last seen at this temperature, so let's keep it at this temperature, or let's go back to a default temperature. It shouldn't be like, oh no, we're not connected to the internet, so I'm gonna warm up your fridge so everything melts. Like, it shouldn't do that.
But that's the thing. Like, we don't know if that's actually being taken under consideration, because if Nest can fail it, who is well funded and essentially owned by Google now, I think it's Google. Yeah, Google.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, if they can fail at something that simple, then who's to say that like these other OEMs that are building stuff actually give a damn and have implemented those
Those
failover
fallbacks.
procedures?
Yeah.
That
You
brings
know,
that really brings
What about that lock that you just bought off a Kickstarter? Did they give a care if your internet died out? Like, it's a very scary thing to actually think about.
And you know what the other thing that's an interesting aspect of this is that when people purchase smartphones, they kind of the purchase of a smartphone traditionally is going hand in hand with that price factored in for your contract for the data, right? Whereas I find a lot of these new services like game consoles and internet fridges, they don't really like the mindset isn't quite there where people equate that they have to essentially be buying a larger data package or a faster internet package to be able to use these products effectively or at their best at their best.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, the best case scenario at this point is to say that it's still early days. There's still a lot of stuff that we have to go ahead and figure out, and I don't think that the Internet of Things is even really a thing as of yet. It's just
and that's what it is. Yeah, it's
it's a
not.
buzzword.
Exactly. It's a buzzword that you kind of get to a point where it's almost cringeworthy whenever you hear someone say
Oh yeah.
IoT because it's like, well, what even is it? And it's like it's not really. I don't know. I think it's something that's just going to naturally happen, but having its own name and making it hype like this is the year of IoT. I think that's a little bit bizarre and ridiculous. It's something that we're naturally going to flow into, but it's not something that should be so forced and be like this is the next or tablet or what even is a tablet. It's not like a whole new thing. It's just natural progression, I feel.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of nonsense to me, bro. If my toaster can't act as a toaster, I don't want it. You know what I'm saying?
Basically a catchphrase to group a whole bunch of things together so that it's easier to market.
And
Essentially,
Alex makes a good point. His internet just went out. It's like
Yeah, I still wonder when any of these things will provide real utility that makes them actually compelling. I mean, I still remember when I was living in an apartment, I said, the moment I'm living in a house, I want to do all this cool home automation stuff. It seems really... And then I moved into a house, and you know what? I never got around to it because it didn't provide enough utility to really be worth my time.
Yeah.
And there isn't even
So I can turn on the lights from, the other side of the house, but I don't really want to turn the lights on unless I'm in the room anyways.
And that's the thing. We were talking about it last week. There isn't even like one set standard. So you could be setting up your whole house to be automated today, and then in 2 years or a year from now, that technology has kind of been pushed out by another technology. And now, whenever you need to buy new things or updated modules for your home automation, you have to change it all again, anyways.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
Even Philips messed with that because the last update that they did on their Hue lights blocked out everybody else's lights, and then people were so angry they had to go back and roll out another update that removed the DRM restriction off of your lights.
That's like
your lights have DRM, dude. Like, come on.
Whatever happened to the days when you bought a product and you actually owned it and could do whatever the hell you wanted with it?
Yeah.
That's literally exactly what happened with Keurig. They wanted people to just be buying their Keurig mugs or whatever, or their little coffee things. They put DRM protection on it, and then everyone flipped out, and their stock plummeted. And it's like, we're not buying your shit anymore. Then, if you're gonna be being dirty like this, like you're being that greedy that you blew up as a company, and now you want us to only buy from you. So you get people fighting back, but then it comes down to what Brandon was saying. You can spend all this money automating your house and it can be outdated. Like, and that's the funniest thing. I don't even want to buy a car because I know I'm going to end up like, I want a nice infotainment system, but I know it's going to be outdated the day I get it. So I don't even really want to buy a car because I'm worried that it's going to be outdated. Like, it's such a big tech investment.
Alex would be buying a car in like 2020.
Honestly,
years old.
I'm not even kidding. I swear to God that my plans at the moment, I have a 2005 Subaru Impreza. I'm going to try and let this thing last me another 5 to 10 years, and in 5 to 10 years, I think we're going to have automated cars on the road, and I think this might be this is my first, and it might be my last car, and that's what I'm hoping for. I don't know, though.
My last car was 2005, and I still can't believe its sound system had a tape deck.
Essentially, this technology needs to become like a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth, where you can just buy a product that says, for instance, this is just an exaggeration, but it would say on the box, IoT compliant, and then that it'll be able to communicate with other IoT devices. Just like when you buy a Bluetooth speaker, it can communicate with your phone and other Bluetooth devices.
Of course, now the question is, who the hell defines what that means?
Yeah, that's the difficulty.
BlackBerry, no. It's funny because
taking this back to BlackBerry, I mean, even back to that DT-Sec, that's incredibly hard to roll off the tongue. That doesn't work right, man. Like, they need to change the name of that already. But anyways, this DT-Sec.
Diabetes Technology Society, DTS, DT-Sec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That thing that James just said isn't even a standard yet. Like this is the announcement of them making the motion to present it as a standard. It's not an approved standard yet. Even Cloudemacher even says, "I will blog again once the finalized standard is published." So it's not even necessarily a standard as of yet. It's interesting that they're getting into this because, I mean, as we saw previously, they demoed like the IV machine basically being hacked and so on and so forth. But we're still in that weird space where, you know, all of these things are being developed as standards, and people are taking these things under consideration now. They're just starting to take these things under consideration because they know that it's, you know, it's something that was enabled before, all of these devices being able to go ahead and connect to the internet. But again, there was nobody there placing any sort of scrutiny on the security aspect of it all to be able to say, no, you can't do that. Like, you can't hook up somebody's, you know, heart monitor to the internet so that they can view it from the hospital without some sort of security behind it. Like, this needs to be over HTTPS or whatever. But you have it running over HTTP. Anybody can hack in and just read this information, right? These are standards that are essentially being implemented, and it's nice to see that BlackBerry is going ahead and putting this stuff in there. But again, it's not even a standard as of yet. It'll be finalized eventually, but you know, it's still one of those things that BlackBerry is essentially taking a bigger role in, and I think this particular stuff is probably more realistic on the IoT side of things than anything else that we've actually seen from BlackBerry. Like, everybody has essentially heard of their container shipment tracking and so on, because that was one of the biggest initiatives for IoT that they announced thus far. Everybody has essentially heard of that, but they're still not even at the point where that has been, you know, necessarily 110% implemented as of yet. They're still presenting that as an idea. They only started trials of it back in November. So to actually see DTSec be this far ahead, I think this is where the stuff that BlackBerry actually needs to concentrate on their IoT side of things. The IoT and essentially the security side of IoT, more so than anything else that they've actually done. Like BlackBerry specifically, I'm not talking necessarily QNX or anything, because we know that they're in millions of cars at this point. But this stuff is actually interesting, and it'll be more interesting when it actually becomes a standard. And when it does become a standard, that enables other people to actually go ahead and put it to work. Like, the hospitals can say, yes, this is the standard that we're adopting, so that they have it essentially set up in their privacy policy and people are aware of it, so on, stuff like that. Like, you don't have to worry about the security because this is what we're using, you know. Again, I believe this stuff is probably more in tune with their IoT work than probably anything else that they've announced or have publicly put out there thus far.
And this is the stuff that really is setting up BlackBerry to be a major influencer in the market, right? I mean, we've already seen and heard John Chen from Recode say, you know, with Google, we are hoping we could potentially influence future builds of Android from a security perspective. Here we see them on the QNX side at CES talking about, again, the security standards with ADAS and wanting to build a platform for integrating these things. We see DTSec talking about medical device compliance and certification. So again, being able to, one, establish a set standard and using that trust that a lot of people have in the BlackBerry name, they can potentially influence the market to grow kind of along the path that they're heading themselves. So this is definitely the kind of groundwork, the foundation for things to come in the future for them. And, you know, and as Belay said, there's a lot of areas for them that can potentially be revenue generators, be it from asset tracking to, you know, medical device management, MDM, wild stuff that could potentially come to a head here. So it's these foundational steps that are necessitous for them to really drive growth into the future. And as they pivot and transition to keep themselves alive, more or less, right, they're going to have to innovate in these spaces. So, for instance, like BlackBerry's Chase, the Security Achievement Excellence Center, all of that is stuff that they need to do to work with be it the FDA or other government bodies, so that they can really start driving these things. It's not only about awareness, but also having a solution at the end of the day, right? And being able to implement and execute on that. And that's something BlackBerry has a unique position to potentially go ahead and do. It's, can they really implement this type of thing into a broader sense and scale it up? Because standardization without standardization is just that, right? It's just a product. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a business. So very interesting stuff coming from BlackBerry, at least on that side of things. Another interesting thing we had in Canada was BlackBerry hosting the Canadian Prime Minister over at one of the Waterloo Network Operating Centers. Thought that was kind of oddball, right? Not sure exactly why they'd want to do something like that, aside from some PR, sharing some of the innovations at BlackBerry. But it's good FaceTime for them to speak with Canada's leader. What do you guys think of bringing the Prime Minister in to see some of the operations there and how BlackBerry continues to innovate on the security side?
Well, it was nice to actually see like some government involvement there. I don't know how much actual government involvement outside of like photo ops that it was, but because he was essentially, he visited Google as well. Like he went to a lot of the places because, as we know, Waterloo is sort of like a technological hub for Canada. So he actually went to the NOC and he went to the offices of Google, and I'm sure he went other places as well. But I don't know. It really just seemed like a PR thing to me. But who knows? Maybe there was some secondary meetings that we're not necessarily aware of. And Alex is like, no. There was nothing. It was just a photo op. No.
It's never a bad thing, but I don't know. I really have no feelings towards it.
It was just news. It was news.
Yeah.
I was waiting for Brandon, our other Canadian, to chime in on the topic.
About what?
Alright, so we know how he feels about it.
Well,
Okay,
we
let's
know
move on.
how Brandon feels. He was sleeping during the whole mention of it.
Yeah.
Justin Trudeau basically going to Waterloo and checking out the Network Operations Center.
Yeah.
For some reason, I still keep some of your funny money in my wallet for my last trip to Vancouver, but I'm not Canadian either, so it doesn't affect me one bit.
Americans get kind of freaked out that our money has like color and everything like that. I'm like, what? It's normal.
Yeah, and some sort of, I don't know.
It's got like a plastic film on it.
Yeah.
I just don't like how you use coins for like dollar, like the loony, the toonie, and all that. I hate carrying around change. I hate change, and then that's like bigger bills are. That's
try buying stamps with cash at the post office. You'll get some U.S. dollar coins.
Yeah. I think we used to have a $1 bill, like $2 bill or something like that, and then that's when they switched it and stuff.
If you hated Alex, just think about how the strippers feel about it.
Oh, boom. They get welts all over their body.
They're running around with little coin stacks on their. They got a utility belt stack. Anyway, gentlemen, let's go hop on our after show. We'll go talk about how I spooked Alex out prior to the podcast with a creepy music video. This has been episode number 83 entitled NOC. We will catch you all next week. With that being said, just to close out here, I want to thank our awesome Patreon supporters for continuing to support us in creating this podcast. We have a device giveaway. It's a BlackBerry 10 device. Almost like 30% of the people who have put in, it's a priv, it's not a priv. Okay, it's a BlackBerry 10 device. You can check us out on Patreon and put an entry in. We've created a little video, and we're going to also add in more entries. Currently, we've tallied up over 350 unique entries from Twitter to Facebook to Instagram. So it's going to be really fun to see toward the end of the month and beginning of February who that winner is and what that device is. Derek is one of our patrons, actually, and I'm going to tell him what the device is in the after show. So if you are a patron, check out that after show. You'll find out what that device is a little bit early. Anyway, guys, peace.
Later. Thanks for tuning in, hanging out with us.
You know, before we totally close out here, this was a question brought up, and I want to ask it to Derek while we have him on for the live show. What are some of your intentions for development with BlackBerry in the kind of transition it is? Do you dabble in other types of development already, or?
I don't really know. I don't dabble that much at the moment. I've said since since 2011, when BlackBerry was at the height of having BGR throwing crap at it, if I ever have to leave BlackBerry, I'm probably going to Android, and I don't think that's changed for me personally. But yeah, I'm really not sure where I'll end up. It's a shame I can't keep forging ahead on BlackBerry 10. That's kind of pointless by now. But and it's a shame I can't use QT anywhere else. But yeah, if I was going to do something mobile in the future, I'd probably just go to Android. But really, it's too early to say.
Ironically, BlackBerry seems to mirror your sentiment quite a bit in terms of development, right? With the Priv. I'm hoping maybe they can come and revisit BlackBerry 10 in the future, but that's so far out for us right now. We have White Raven in our group here, in our chat, telling you to come over to Windows 10 Mobile. So that's always an option.
Yeah, no.
Windows 10 Mobile isn't any better than BlackBerry 10 right now. So
Shots fired. Let's get off your.
I don't know. Windows Mobile feels like it's sort of the upstart that has no penalty for failure. They tried Windows 7, and they threw it all away and did Windows Phone 8. Then they changed everything again for Windows Phone 8.1, and now 10 is, it's a completely new API. So, yeah.
That's tough on developers. Things are always changing and APIs changing.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're Apple, you can make them, bend over and take it. But if you're, the bit player in the corner, why should they put up with you?
Yeah. No, and like there's universal apps. I feel like that's the only thing that's appealing on Windows right now. The fact that you can make a universal app and have it work on the phone, and then it'll work on tablets, and then it'll also work on the desktop. But then I'm in this area where like I don't even have the Netflix or the Twitch or any of those Windows apps on my computer because I just use the website. So it's like they've gone out of their way and made these apps and these universal apps, and I don't even use them. So I guess there's kind of the trade-off, and then Android is going to kind of have universal apps with the way that they're going to have a desktop OS, and we'll see what happens with that. And I don't know, everything is changing rapidly. I feel like everyone's trying to find their way, so it's a really tough time to decide what you want to do. But I think there's a couple safe bets right now. That's probably iOS and Android, but I don't know, unfortunately.
Yeah, Microsoft did a better job at unifying their APIs between all their platforms, and it was just a matter of the UI. Then everyone would already be most of the way there.
Yeah.
iOS isn't even a safe bet because you could spend, however many months working on an iOS app and you still run into the chance that nobody will ever actually even see it because of the amount of apps that are in the App Store. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Android same way.
Yeah. Or that you'll wind up doing something Apple doesn't approve of and you'll just get rejected when you submit.
Yeah.
It actually happened to a former coworker of mine who did an iOS app on the side, put a lot of time and effort into it, got up to the end, and Apple just said, screw you. And when he pointed to big name apps that were doing the same thing he was, they just said, sorry, they're bigger.
Sounds like a legit Apple excuse.
Wow. Pretty rough. Anyway, gentlemen, let's go hop on this after show, and we'll riv Alex some more on his life choices.
But treat for you guys too. I'm going to talk about a nice app that you should get.
Oh gosh, here we go. Oh, this is gonna be a long after show, guys. We will see you all next Sunday. That is going to be, my calendar's not loading here. Darn you, Windows 10. It'll be
Next is the 24th. Yeah.
They still keep asking me to install that update. I still haven't said yes.
I wish it was like dismiss, never show me again, but we'll move on from there. Gentlemen, I'm going to hit your emails up with the after show link, and we'll get started. Peace and love, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.